No one remembers exactly when the village vanished from maps, but the locals who still live along the outer ridges of the Ozarks whisper a name they refuse to write down. They say if you write it, it notices. And if it notices, it invites you in. It began, for me, with a road that wasn't supposed to exist. I was chasing a story like always: missing hikers, strange animal mutilations, a cluster of abandoned vehicles found miles apart, but all facing the same direction, deeper into the forest. The police reports were dry, sterile, but there was something off. People don't just vanish in groups without leaving a trace, not in terrain like this. Not unless something is pulling them. The Ozark Mountains have a way of swallowing sound. You don't notice it at first, but the deeper you go, the quieter everything becomes. Not peaceful, quiet, but hollow quiet, like the forest is listening more than it's living. That's where I found the road. It wasn't on any GPS. My signal had dropped 10 minutes earlier, and my compass had begun twitching, needle stuttering like it was confused. The road appeared between two leaning oak trees, barely wide enough for my truck. Gravel, but old, sunken, uneven, like it hadn't been maintained in decades. And yet, there were fresh tire marks. I should have turned back. Instead, I followed them. The trees grew denser, branches clawing toward each other overhead until the sky disappeared. My headlights cut through a gray-green haze, catching glimpses of things just beyond the beam shapes that moved when I wasn't looking directly at them. The smell changed too. Damp earth at first, then something metallic, then something sweet, like rot covered in sugar. About 3 miles in, I saw the first sign of it. A wooden post driven into the ground at the side of the road. On top of it, what I thought was a bundle of cloth. Until I slowed down, it wasn't cloth, it was skin. Stretched, dried, and nailed into place like a warning flag. Symbols carved into it deep, deliberate cuts, forming patterns I didn't recognize. They weren't random, they were precise. Ritualistic. I didn't stop. But I didn't leave either. Another mile and the road opened into a clearing. That's where the village was, or what was left of it. Crooked wooden houses circled a central structure that looked like an old church but wrong. The steeple leaned at an unnatural angle and the windows were covered from the inside. No light escaped. No movement. Nothing. It looked abandoned, but the air said otherwise. I stepped out of the truck. That was my second mistake. The silence hit me first. Total. Absolute. Even the wind had stopped. My boots crunched on gravel. Loud, too loud, like I was breaking some unspoken rule. Then I saw the bones. At first I thought they were animal remains scattered near the buildings. But as I got closer, I realized they weren't scattered randomly. They were arranged, carefully. Patterns again. Circles, lines, spirals. Some of them were human. You don't forget the shape of a human skull once you've seen one up close. And these had been cleaned. Not by time. By hands. That's when I heard the bell. A low, hollow sound from the church. Not loud, but deep enough that I felt it in my chest. One slow toll. Then another. Then something moved inside. I don't remember deciding to walk toward it. I just did, like my body wasn't fully mine anymore. Each step felt heavy, deliberate, pulled forward by something I couldn't see. The church door was already open. Inside, it was darker than it should have been. Even with my flashlight, the light seemed to die halfway across the room. The walls were covered in markings, same symbols as the skin on the road, but more complex here. Layered, repeated, painted in something dark that had dried into the wood. At the center, there was a pit. Not a hole dug randomly, a constructed pit, stone-lined, deep, and inside it, something wet shifted. I stepped closer, and that's when the smell hit fully. Blood, fresh, not days old, not hours old, fresh. Something moved below again. A shape, then a sound, low, strained breathing. Help! The voice barely reached me. I dropped to my knees at the edge and pointed the flashlight down. A man, barely alive, skin pale, slick with blood, cuts carved into his chest and arm symbols again. His eyes locked onto mine with desperate clarity. "They're coming back," he whispered. "You have to." The bell rang again, louder this time, behind me. I turned slowly. They were already inside. I don't know how many. At least a dozen. Maybe more. Standing in the shadows along the walls, perfectly still. Watching. They weren't what I expected. Not wild, not frenzied. Calm. Composed. Their clothes were simple old-fashioned, almost colonial in style, but stained. Dark patches soaked into fabric that had never been properly cleaned. Their faces were pale, expressions blank, except for their eyes. Their eyes were wrong. Too focused. Too aware. Like they had been waiting. One of them stepped forward. An older man. Thin. Skin stretched tight over bone, but standing straight with unnatural strength. In his hand, he held a blade not crude but carefully crafted. The metal caught my flashlight beam, reflecting it back in a sharp glint. "You came," he said. His voice wasn't surprised. It was welcoming. Like I had fulfilled something. "I'm taking him," I said, pointing down into the pit, my voice steadier than I felt. "He needs a hospital." A faint smile touched his lips. "No," he said softly. "He needs to finish." Before I could react, hands grabbed me from behind. Strong. Too strong. They pulled me back, forcing me to watch as two others approached the pit. The man inside started screaming, not loudly, but with the kind of raw terror that comes when you know exactly what's about to happen. "Please, no, please." They ignored him. The older man raised the blade and began to chant. The others joined in, their voices low, synchronized. The sound filled the church, vibrating through the walls, through the floor, through me. The symbols on the walls seemed to shift in the flickering light, like they were reacting. The blade came down. Clean. Precise. The screaming stopped instantly. What happened next wasn't slaughter. It was ritual. They worked with purpose. Every movement deliberate. Blood collected in carved wooden bowls. Pieces taken not randomly, but according to pattern, according to meaning. One of them dipped their fingers into the blood and painted a symbol onto their own forehead. Then another. Then all of them. The older man turned back to me. "You don't understand yet," he said, "but you will." I struggled, but the grip on me tightened. "You see death," he continued. "We see continuation. We see communion." He stepped closer. "Do you know why this place is not on your maps?" I didn't answer. He leaned in, close enough that I could smell the iron on his breath. "Because we were meant to be forgotten." The chanting grew louder again. Behind him, the others had begun to eat. Not frantically, not savagely, slowly, deliberately, like it meant something sacred. I forced myself to look away, but everywhere I turned, there it was, the ritual, the precision, the complete absence of hesitation. "This is older than your cities," the man said, "older than your laws. Blood carries memory, flesh carries truth. When we partake, we inherit." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "You're insane," he smiled. "No," he said quietly, "we are complete." Then he did something I didn't expect. He cut his own palm. The blood welled instantly, dark and thick. He held it out toward me. "Take it." I shook my head. "Take it," he repeated more firmly now, "or you will never leave." The hands holding me tightened again. I realized then this wasn't an invitation. It was a requirement. "You crossed the threshold," he said. "You walked the road. You entered the circle. That binds you." The chanting shifted. Lower now. He pressed his bleeding hand against my face. The warmth hit first, then the smell, then something else, something deeper, something that didn't belong to me. Images flooded in, flashes of things I had never seen but somehow recognized. The village, not abandoned, but thriving. Fires burning. Fires burning. People gathered. Rituals performed under a sky that looked wrong, darker, closer, and beneath it all. Hunger, not physical, something older, something that demanded to be fed. I screamed, or at least I think I did, because the next thing I remember, I was outside, on my knees, the church behind me, the bell still ringing, and the road open, empty, like it was waiting for me to leave. I stumbled to my truck, hands shaking, mind spinning. The engine roared to life, louder than anything I had ever heard. I didn't look back, not once. But as I drove away, I saw it in the rearview mirror. The village, still there, but not empty. They were all standing at the edge of the clearing, watching, and the older man, he raised his blood-covered hand, not in warning, in farewell, because he knew something I didn't, not yet, but I would, because when I finally reached the main road, when my signal returned, when I tried to call for help, my voice wasn't the same, and the taste in my mouth, metallic, warm, familiar, and no matter how much I tried to spit it out, it wouldn't go away. Part 2. The Cannibal Blood Rituals of a Forgotten Ozark Village. I didn't report it. Not to the police. Not to anyone. I told myself it was shock. Trauma. That my brain had twisted something explainable into something impossible. People disappear in forests. Cults exist. Rituals happen. That's what I kept repeating. But repetition doesn't make something untrue disappear. It just makes it quieter. For 3 days, I stayed locked inside my apartment. Curtains drawn, lights off, phone on silent. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the pit, the blood, the way they moved, not like killers, but like participants in something older than morality. And the worst part, the hunger. It started as a faint sensation, easy to ignore, a hollow feeling in my stomach that food didn't fix. I ordered takeout, forced myself to eat, but it all tasted wrong. Bland, empty, like chewing on paper. By the second day, it got worse. The smell of raw meat, something I had never paid attention to before, began to linger in my mind. Not just the smell, the idea of it. My thoughts would drift there without permission. I'd catch myself staring at my own hands, imagining the texture beneath the skin. That's when I realized this wasn't psychological. It was physical. Something had changed. I tried to leave. I really did. Packed a bag, got in my truck, started driving, no destination, just away. Away from Arkansas. Away from the Ozarks. Away from whatever had attached itself to me in that church. I made it exactly 42 miles. Then the engine died. No warning. No sputtering. Just stopped. The road was empty. No signal. No passing cars. Just trees. Endless trees. And that silence again. That same hollow quiet. I didn't need a map. I already knew where I was. Or more accurately, I knew where I was being pulled. The road appeared the same way it had before, slipping into existence between two trees like it had always been there. Waiting. I sat there for a long time, hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. "You don't have to go back," I whispered to myself, but something inside me answered, "Yes, you do." I don't remember turning the wheel, but I remember the relief when I did. That's the part that still haunts me. Not the fear, not the horror, the relief. The deeper I drove, the stronger it became. The hunger sharpened, but it no longer felt like pain. It felt like anticipation, like something unfinished was about to be completed. When I reached the clearing, the village was no longer silent. There were lights now. Fires, movement. It wasn't abandoned. It was alive. People moved between the buildings, carrying things I didn't want to look at too closely. The church stood at the center, its crooked steeple silhouetted against a sky that looked darker than it should have been even at dusk. And they were waiting for me. Not hidden this time, not watching from shadows, standing openly at the edge of the clearing, exactly where I had seen them before. The older man stepped forward again. Same blade, same calm expression, but this time I didn't feel like running. "Welcome back," he said. I swallowed hard, but my throat was dry. "You did something to me?" I said. He tilted his head slightly. "No," he replied. "We revealed something in you." "That's not possible." He smiled faintly. "Eat and tell me it isn't." The word hit me harder than anything else. Eat. The hunger surged instantly, sharp and undeniable. My stomach twisted, my mouth filled with that same metallic warmth, and for a brief, horrifying moment, I wanted to. Not out of curiosity, not out of fear. Out of need, I staggered back a step. "What is this?" I demanded. "What did you do?" He gestured toward the village. "This place," he said, "exists outside your understanding of time, outside your laws. Generations ago, we were like you, hungry in ways we couldn't explain, searching for meaning in a world that offered none." He began walking toward the church, and I followed. I didn't mean to, but I did. "We found it," he continued. "Deep beneath this land, something buried long before we ever arrived. Something that taught us." "Taught you what?" He stopped at the doorway. "How to become more." Inside, the church was different. Brighter. The pit was still there, but now it was surrounded by symbols carved into the stone floor itself. Fresh markings, fresh blood, and around it, people, not victims, participants. They stood in a circle, chanting softly, their voices low and steady. In the center of the pit, something moved again, but this time it wasn't struggling. It was offering. I forced myself to look closer, and my breath caught. It wasn't a random person. It was one of them, calm, willing, eyes open, staring upward with something that looked disturbingly like peace. "They give themselves," I whispered. The older man nodded. "To feed the whole," he said, "to carry forward what we are." "That's insane." "No," he said again, more firmly this time. "It is continuity." The chanting grew louder. The person in the pit raised their head slightly, eyes locking onto mine. And then they smiled. That was the moment something inside me cracked, because there was no fear in that expression, no resistance, only acceptance. The blade rose again, and I didn't look away this time. I couldn't. The act was the same as before, precise, ritualistic, but now I saw the details I had missed, the patterns, the order, the way each movement aligned with the symbols around them. This wasn't chaos, it was structure. The blood flowed into the carvings on the floor, filling them like channels, connecting each symbol into a larger design that pulsed faintly as it completed. And then I felt it, not outside. Inside, a shift, like something waking up. The chanting stopped all at once. Silence fell, and every single person in that room turned to me. "You feel it now," the older man said softly. I didn't answer, because I did. Deep in my chest, beneath the fear, beneath the confusion, beneath everything I thought I understood about myself, something was reaching back. The hunger wasn't empty anymore. It was full of meaning. "Come forward," he said. I took a step, then another, until I stood at the edge of the pit. The warmth rising from it was overwhelming. The smell, once nauseating, now felt inviting. The older man handed me the blade. My hands trembled as I took it. "This is your choice," he said, "not ours." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But as I looked down into the pit, at what remained, at the patterns glowing faintly beneath the surface, I knew the truth. The choice had already been made the moment I stepped onto that road the first time. My grip tightened, and for a single, fleeting second, I saw myself clearly, not as a victim, not as an outsider, but as something in between, something becoming. The blade felt lighter in my hand, natural, familiar. The older man stepped back, giving me space. The entire room watched in silence, waiting, not forcing, not demanding, just waiting. My reflection shimmered in the dark surface below, but it wasn't quite right. The eyes, they looked like theirs, too focused, too aware. I raised the blade, and the hunger finally made sense. Because it wasn't just about flesh, it was about connection, memory, becoming part of something that didn't end, something that didn't forget. My hand moved, slowly, deliberately, and as it did, the bell began to ring again, not from above, from below, deep beneath the pit, a sound so low it felt like the earth itself was breathing. The cymbals flared brighter, the air grew heavy, and in that moment, I understood why the village had never truly disappeared, why no map could hold it, why no one who entered ever truly left. Because this place, it doesn't take you, it changes you. And once it does, you don't belong anywhere else. The blade hovered for just a second longer. Then I let it fall, and the bell stopped.